In a city wrapped in noise and neon, where life moved too fast and hope felt far away, a little girl named Elara grew quieter each day. Her laughter faded, her breath grew shallow, and her parents searched the world for a way to bring her back to light. When every door seemed to close, they made a choice from the heart, one final hope, nestled far from sirens and steel. They sent her to a place where the sky stretched wide, where wildflowers danced in the wind, and where an old man with gentle hands waited at the gate of a small red farmhouse. This is the story of how Elara found healing. Not in medicine alone, but in the earth beneath her feet, the animals by her side, and the love that bloomed in quiet places. Welcome to the Farm of Healing. A city of noise, a room of silence. In the heart of a vast and bustling city, where cars roared and neon lights painted the night, lived a little girl named Elara. She was only 8 years old, with soft golden curls and eyes that once danced with curiosity. But lately, her laughter had faded. Doctors whispered long words and drew lines on papers. Her parents, Myra and John, searched endlessly for answers, for treatments, for hope. Elara's world had shrunk to the walls of a quiet hospital room, filled with machines that hummed and beeped like unfamiliar lullabies. Outside the window, life rushed on. Inside, time slowed. Her body grew weaker with each passing week, and so did the savings her parents had so carefully built. Appointments, specialists, flights. Nothing was too much if it meant saving her. But time and money both had limits. And love, though boundless, could not stop the weight of exhaustion. They needed help. They needed a miracle. That's when they thought of someone long forgotten by the city's rush, a gentle soul who lived far from glass towers and sirens. The train to somewhere quieter. With heavy hearts and trembling hands, Myra packed Elara's small suitcase. A faded bunny toy. A sketchbook. A soft wool scarf. Elara's eyes, still large and wondering, watched every movement. "Where am I going, Mamar?" Ishi asked quietly. "To Grandpa's farm," Amira replied, forcing a smile. "Just for a little while. He'll take care of you while Daddy and I figure out more ways to help." The morning she left, the city was cloaked in rain. The train station smelled of oil and distant journeys. Elara hugged her parents tightly, her small arms barely reaching around her father's waist. "Be strong for me, okay?" her mother whispered, lips trembling. "And write to us. Every day." With a final wave, the train pulled away. Elara stared through the misted window as tall buildings disappeared behind her. Mile after mile, steel turned to grass, noise to birdsong. Her heart beat with something strange, part fear, part wonder. The train rolled on. Toward the farm. Toward Grandpa. Toward the unknown. The arrival at Grandfather's gate. The train came to a gentle stop in a quiet, sun-dappled town. There were no tall towers here, no rush of hurried feet, only the creak of the platform and the scent of blooming wildflowers in the warm air. Elara stepped off slowly, clutching her small suitcase, her eyes scanning the crowd until she saw him. A tall man in a worn brown coat, silver hair tucked under a flat cap, eyes kind as the earth itself, Grandpa Thomas. He opened his arms, and Elara ran into them, her cheek pressing against his chest where the rhythm of his heartbeat was slow, steady, grounding. "There you are," Little Blossom, he whispered, lifting her with care. Let's get you home. Home was a red farmhouse cradled between green hills, with chickens in the yard and the smell of warm bread on the breeze. Elara sat beside her grandfather in an old truck that rattled like a lullaby. The windows were down, and the countryside seemed to sing. She didn't speak much on the drive, but her eyes began to breathe. The first night beneath the stars. The sky over the farm was wider than she'd ever seen, painted in violets and blues, dotted with stars like pinpricks of heaven. Her room was simple, a wooden bed with a handmade quilt, the scent of lavender tucked into its seams. Grandpa left the window open, is so the night air can kiss your cheeks, he said. Elara lay there, tired but calm, the sounds of the farm rising around her like a song. Crickets in the grass, owls in the distance, the wind gently brushing through the trees. No sirens. No monitors. No hums of sterile machines. Just the rhythm of nature. She hugged her bunny close and stared at the ceiling, where moonlight danced in soft waves. And as she drifted into sleep, she thought, for the first time in a long while, maybe I'm not so far from healing after all. Morning on the farm. The first light spilled through the lace curtains, golden and gentle, waking Elara with a warmth she hadn't felt in weeks. Downstairs, Grandpa was already at the stove, flipping pancakes and humming a tune from some old memory. Sleep well, Blossom? He asked as she shuffled in, her bunny in tow. She nodded, sliding into the wooden chair by the table. The air smelled of cinnamon and apples. The kitchen was full of plants and jars and sunlight. Today, he said, placing a plate before her, we're going to meet the chickens. They've been waiting to see you. Elara smiled, a small one, but real. Something inside her, quiet and unsure, leaned toward this new rhythm. The pancakes tasted like love. And outside the window, the day waited with open arms. The hen named Myrtle. In a patch of green behind the house, a dozen hens strutted through the grass, clucking and pecking at the earth like they owned the place. But one in particular, a plump, snow-feathered lady with a crooked toe, waddled right up to Elara without fear. That's Myrtle, a grandpa said, chuckling. She thinks she's part dog. Elara kneeled down, careful and curious. Myrtle tilted her head, then gave a bold peck at Elara's boot, earning a giggle. It was the first larf in a long time. Grandpa handed her a small tin of feed. Want to try? With trembling hands, she scattered the grains, and the hens swarmed around her like soft feathered dancers. Myrtle stayed closest, even letting Elara touch her wing. For the rest of the day, Myrtle followed her everywhere, into the garden, onto the porch, even into the kitchen, until Grandpa gently shooed her out. That night, Elara whispered to her bunny, I think I made a friend. And sleep came easy. A walk with bare feet. The next morning, Grandpa handed her a pair of old boots, but Elara hesitated. Can I go barefoot? As she asked, shyly. He smiled. Of course. The earth has healing in it, you know. And so they walked, side by side, through dewy grass that kissed her ankles and soft soil that squished between her toes. The sun climbed slowly, painting their path with light. They passed bee-buzzing wildflowers, dragonflies dancing over the pond, and trees that whispered stories in the breeze. Elara breathed deeply. It was the kind of air that felt like a lullaby in her lungs. Clean, slow, full of life. She leaned her head back and closed her eyes. The ground was cool. The wind was kind. And her body, so long strained and still, began to soften. The garden with the singing wind. Grandpa led her to the back of the farm, where a quiet garden bloomed in soft colors: lavender, mint, chamomile, and wild poppies. Bees hovered lazily in the sun. "This is our healing garden," Ihi said. "Plants know things. They listen." Elara ran her fingers through the soft tops of lavender and closed her eyes. There, in the hush between the flowers, the wind began to sing, a gentle tune, wordless and full of life. It was as if the earth was whispering to her bones, "You are safe here." Herbal tea and stories. That evening, Grandpa made her a cup of warm chamomile tea with honey from the farm's own bees. As they sat on the porch, he told her stories, not from books, but from memory. Tales of his youth, of Elara's mother as a girl, of quiet moments by the river. She sipped slowly, the warmth running down her throat and into her chest. With each word, her heart beat steadier. With each story, she felt more rooted. As the stars returned, so did the softness in her breath. The journal. One morning, Grandpa handed her a small leather-bound book. "This was your mother's," Ihi said. "She used to write her dreams here." Elara turned the first page, empty now, waiting. And so, she began to write. Not with grand words, just small ones. "I fed Myrtle today. The sky was very blue. I didn't feel tired until after lunch." Her thoughts found a place. Her heart found space. The pond and the ducklings. Near the edge of the property was a still pond, ringed with tall reeds and lily pads. That day, Elara saw them, tiny yellow ducklings following their mother like a parade of fluff. She crouched low, silent, watching as they paddled through the glassy water. Grandpa joined her, placing a hand on her shoulder. "New life always finds its way," he whispered. And for the first time, Elara truly believed it might be true. A letter from Mamar. In the afternoon mail, tied with a red ribbon, came a letter in her mother's handwriting. Elara ran her fingers over the paper before reading. It smelled faintly of her mother's perfume. Inside were words of hope, love, and longing. "We are so proud of you. Keep growing, keep breathing, keep shining." Elara held the letter to her chest and whispered, "I will." The rainy day quilled forward. One morning, the sky turned grey and the rain began to fall in soft sheets. But inside the farmhouse, it was warm and glowing. Grandpa helped her build a quilt fort in the living room, complete with pillows and a flashlight. They played checkers and told ghost stories so gentle they made her giggle. Rain tapped the windows like a lullaby. It was the most beautiful storm she had ever known. The first full breath. That night, Elara noticed something new. As she climbed into bed, she realized she wasn't out of breath. She took in air, full, smooth, rich with lavender and night. No cough, no tightness, just breath. And with it, a spark of wonder. Baking bread. Grandpa taught her how to knead dough. Flour on her cheeks, fingers sticky, laughter spilling into the kitchen air. The scent of rising bread filled the house with comfort. When it was done, they shared warm slices with butter and jam. "I made this," as she whispered, amazed. "Yes," a grandpa said, "in your hands will make many more good things." The fireflies. Twilight came with flickers of golden light, fireflies dancing just above the grass. Elara stepped out barefoot, arms outstretched. She twirled among them, smiling, heart light. Grandpa watched from the porch, eyes misty. The girl who had arrived in stillness was glowing again. Planting hope. In the garden, they planted new herbs, lemon balm, sage, thyme. Each seed tucked into the soil with love. "These are yours to care for," a grandpa said. Elara knelt and whispered, "It grows strong. Like I want to." And the earth, in its quiet way, listened. The whispering tree. There was an old oak on the hill, tall and wide like time itself. Elara climbed onto its lowest branch and leaned her head back. The leaves rustled like whispers. She closed her eyes and felt the heartbeat of the world. Everything was slower. Everything was enough. A day without pain. It was subtle at first. No ache in her legs. No dizziness. She climbed the hill. She helped carry feed. She didn't feel broken. She felt like Elara again. Return of the laughter. Over breakfast, something funny happened. Myrtle jumped onto the table and stole toast. Grandpa sputtered. Elara burst into laughter. A real, belly-deep, free laugh. The room echoed with joy. And something deep inside her stitched itself whole. A visit from the mailman. The local mailman, a kind man named Peter, began bringing little surprises with each delivery. A feather, a poem, a polished stone. Magic finds those who believe, he winked. Elara kept each token in a box under her bed. A treasure chest of days well lived. Writing to Mama. Elara began writing back to her mother every Sunday. She filled pages with drawings, stories, pressed flowers. "I'm getting stronger. Grandpa says I have farmer hands now." Each letter closed with, "I love you. Don't worry. I'm okay." The barn cat's kittens. The barn cat, Missy, had kittens one night. Tiny, blind, mewling things nestled in straw. Elara visited them daily, whispering names and lullabies. She held one gently against her chest, its purr a soft engine. She, too, had once been this fragile. And like the kittens, she was growing. Grandpa's lullaby. One evening, Elara felt sad for no reason. Tears came, quiet and unexpected. Grandpa held her close and hummed an old lullaby, slow and deep. No words. Just warmth. She cried, and it was okay. Healing isn't always loud. The sunflower row. She helped plant sunflowers by the fence. Each morning, she checked their height. "They grow toward the light," a grandpa said. "So do I," she replied. And they smiled, both knowing it was true. Learning to cook. She stirred soup, chopped carrots, baked muffins. Each act, small but sure, She began feeling not just better, but capable. She was no longer just being cared for. She was part of the care. Dancing in the kitchen. With the radio playing an old waltz, Elara grabbed Grandpa's hands. They danced among pots and pans, laughter rising. It wasn't graceful, but it was beautiful. And in that twirl, joy found its rhythm again. A little bell. Grandpa gave her a tiny brass bell. "Ring it any time you need me," he said. She rarely used it, but she kept it near. A symbol that help was always close. A new friend. A neighbor girl named Lucy came by with berry pie. Shy at first, then giggling in the fields. They ran. They played. They shared secrets. Elara had a friend again. Her world was no longer just recovery. It was life. A letter from the doctors. A letter came from the city. Grandpa read it slowly. Elara watched his face shift, then soften. "The tests are clear," he said, voice trembling. "You're better, Elara. You're well." She didn't speak. She just wept. And outside, the sunflowers bloomed, preparing for the visit. Mamar and Popper were coming. Elara baked muffins, cleaned the porch, wrote a welcome note. The farm had become hers, too. A part of her soul rooted in every corner. She wasn't nervous. She was proud. The reunion. The truck pulled in. She ran. They ran. 3 hearts collided in one long, tearful hug. "You're glowing," her mother whispered. "You healed me," Elara said. "No," Grandpa added gently, as she healed here. Showing them the garden. She led them through every part, the pond, the tree, the hens, the herbs. Myrtle proudly strutted beside her. Memar cried. Popper knelt in the dirt and whispered thanks. The farm had become a place of grace. Sleeping all together. That night, they made a bed of blankets by the fireplace. Just like old times. They fell asleep, arms entwined, surrounded by warmth. And Elara dreamed not of illness, but of growing things. Choosing to stay. They offered to take her home. But she hesitated. "I think I want to stay a little longer," she said. And they nodded. Because they saw the truth in her cheeks, in her joy. She belonged to this rhythm now. A birthday on the hill. Her 9th birthday arrived with wildflowers and blueberry cake. Neighbors came. Lucy brought drawings. The kittens curled beside her. She laughed, danced, ran. It was the birthday of a girl reborn. A story for others. Elara began writing her journey. Her journal became a book. Her voice, soft and honest, carried through the village. Others came to listen, to heal, to remember the power of quiet places. you.